All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are basically tearing down everything you thought you knew about getting rich, and we're building it all back up right from scratch. We are looking at the absolute foundational principles of financial literacy, and we're drawing heavily on the legendary insights and visual frameworks popularized by Robert Kiyosaki. Listen, if you've ever felt like you're working harder and harder every single year, but you're not actually getting ahead, this explainer is exactly for you. We're going to take some really complex stuff and make it incredibly simple. So let's get started. So let me ask you a question. Seriously, think about this for a second. What actually happens when you hand millions of dollars to someone who completely lacks financial intelligence? Most of us harbor this illusion that a sudden windfall, like, I don't know, winning the lottery, getting a massive raise, or inheriting a bunch of money will magically solve all our problems. We tell ourselves, man, if I just had more money, everything would be totally fine. But is that actually true? Actually, Kiyosaki tells this crazy, well, incredibly tragic story about a 29-year-old pro basketball player. Just a year prior, the guy had literal millions of dollars. And today, he claims his friends, his lawyer, his accountant, they all just took his money. Now he's working at a car wash for minimum wage. In fact, he actually got fired from that car wash because he refused to take off his championship ring while wiping down the cars. It's wild, right? But it perfectly sets the stage for us today. Getting money is one thing, but keeping that money, that is the real challenge. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the illusion of money. Then, the only rule you need. We'll trace the 3 paths of cash flow, expose the rat race trap, and finally, we'll wrap up by completely redefining true wealth. Let's dive right into section 1, the illusion of money. We really need to shatter this massive misconception that money itself is the ultimate finish line. Because the crucial point is this: it's not about how much money you make, it is all about how much money you keep. Kiyosaki famously drives this point home to his audiences by drawing these incredibly simple, almost crude diagrams on a whiteboard. And why does he do that? Because it's the absolute truth. Without financial literacy, an increase in cash just results in an increase in spending. You know the old saying, right? A fool and his money is just one big party. There's a really stark contrast here. Money without financial intelligence, boom, it's gone. It's temporary. But intelligence, now that is your true wealth. Because intelligence solves problems, and solving problems produces money. Look, we live in an era of rapid, totally volatile change. Booms and busts are going to happen for sure. But if you're flexible, if you keep an open mind, and you really focus on your financial education, you're actually going to grow richer through all those crazy changes. If you're just sitting there relying on money itself to save you, well, you are in for a very rough ride. Moving right along to section 2, the only rule you need. Now, I know. Accounting sounds literally like the most boring thing on the planet, but honestly, to build long-term wealth, it's absolutely crucial. So let's keep it incredibly simple. Actually, scratch the word accounting. Let's just look at it as keeping score. Here is the bedrock concept. What is an asset? An asset is simply something that puts money in your pocket. That's it. Forget the massive convoluted textbook definitions. We are purely talking about the directional flow of cash. Does it put money in your pocket every single month, whether you're working or not? Yes? Then boom, it's an asset. We're talking stocks, bonds, rental real estate, royalties from a patent. Simple, right? On the flip side, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Again, it's all about directional cash flow. Mortgages, consumer loans, credit card debt. This source material actually talks about this Japanese concept called the power of the mirror, basically the power of deep self-knowledge. And I highly encourage you to use that power of the mirror right now. Just take a hard look at your own buying habits. Are the things you own actively putting money in your pocket every month, or are they just constantly draining it? When you put these two behaviors side by side, the ultimate secret to wealth is basically staring right at you. Why do the rich keep getting richer? It's simple, because rich people spend their entire lives acquiring assets. And why do the middle class struggle so much? Because they acquire liabilities, but they think they're acquiring assets. This is the whole tragedy of what Kiyosaki calls the leaning tower of suburbia. It's people trying to build this massive empire on a tiny 6-inch concrete slab instead of taking the time to pour a deep, solid financial foundation. Which brings us to section 3, 3 paths of cash flow. Okay, let's trace exactly how money moves. First, let's look at the cash flow pattern of the poor, or even just a young person who's just starting out in life. Step 1, they get income from a job. Step 2, that income flows immediately out to basic living expenses. We're talking rent, food, transportation, clothes. And step 3, they acquire 0 assets and 0 long-term liabilities. So the money comes in, and the money goes straight out. Now look at the middle class. This is where the illusion of success really traps people. Step 1, they get a good job and earn a really solid income. But then steps 2 and 3 happen. As their income goes up, their expenses go right up with it. They buy the bigger house, the brand new cars, they finance all that nice furniture. They're basically just filling up their liability column with the mortgage, consumer loans, and credit card debt. They look around and think they're doing amazing, but ultimately their cash flow is just pouring right out of their pockets and straight to banks and lenders. And then, here is the winning formula, the cash flow pattern of the wealthy. Step 1, they acquire assets. Step 2, those assets generate passive income, things like dividends, interest, or rental income. Step 3, that passive income covers their expenses. Do you notice the massive shift here? Their primary source of income isn't a paycheck from physical labor anymore. It's the cash being generated by their asset column. Their money is out there working hard for them, not the other way around. All right, let's get into section 4, the rat race trap. So why don't more people build wealth? Honestly, it's because of these deeply ingrained societal dogmas that we just blindly accept. We hear this one constantly. Your home is an asset, right? It's the ultimate American dream. Financial planners, bankers, real estate agents, literally everyone tells you this. But if we go back to our brutally simple definition from a minute ago, does it put money in your pocket or take money out? We really have to step back and ask, is your house actually an asset? The harsh reality explained in our sources is that for most people, a house is actually a massive liability. Why? Well, because the cash flow is constantly going out. You're paying the mortgage, property taxes, maintenance, utilities. The list never ends. And buying a home that's too expensive impacts you in 3 really hidden ways. First, there's a loss of time, where your money could have been sitting there growing in true assets. Second, a loss of additional capital, because all your extra cash is going to home maintenance instead of investments. And third, and this is a big one, loss of investment experience. Because people tie all their cash up in their house, they never actually have the capital left over to learn how to be sophisticated investors. When you're stuck in this rat race, just completely relying on your wages, you really need to ask yourself who you're actually working for. First, you're working for the owner. Your hard work is basically just making the company's shareholders richer. Second, the government. Because by working harder and getting a raise, you simply increase the amount of taxes they take out of your check. And third, the bank. After taxes, your absolute largest expense is usually your mortgage and credit card debt. You are literally exhausting yourself to enrich everyone else before you even get to your own family. Let's talk about the government's slice of the pie for a second. Think about the number 15%. A lot of people assume income tax is their biggest burden. But for most folks, the heaviest tax is actually Social Security and Medicare. On your pay stub, it might just look like 7.5%, but since your employer is required to match it, it's really a 15% tax on your labor. That is money your boss literally cannot pay you. To put that into perspective, most people are basically working from January all the way to May just to pay the government before they even see a single dime for themselves. It's crazy. And finally, Section 5, redefining true wealth. Okay, so if your net worth and your salary aren't actually the right metrics for success, what is? Well, the sources introduce this absolutely brilliant concept borrowed from Buckminster Fuller. Wealth is not a dollar amount. Wealth is actually a measure of time. It's a person's ability to survive a certain number of days forward if they just stopped working today. How long could you survive financially without a paycheck coming in? That right there, that is your true wealth. Because there's a huge, massive difference between net worth and true wealth. Net worth is kind of just an illusion. It includes all that expensive junk sitting out in your garage, your depreciating cars, and basically just fluctuating opinions of what your house might be worth. But wealth is concrete. It is the actual, tangible cash flow generated from your assets compared to your monthly expenses. It strictly measures your financial survivability. So, all of this leads us to the ultimate goal. You become truly, genuinely wealthy when the monthly passive income generated by your asset column equals or ideally exceeds your monthly living expenses. At that exact moment, you are officially freed from the necessity of wages. Your money works for you. You do not work for it. It's honestly just like planting a tree, right? You water it for years, and then one day its roots are finally deep enough that it just provides shade for you automatically. I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. If you just completely stopped working today, how long could you survive? Be honest with yourself here. Use that power of the mirror we talked about. It's time to stop conforming, stop blindly following the crowd into a lifetime of debt, and start pouring a deep, totally unbreakable financial foundation. Start minding your own business and start buying real assets. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.